set your priestess in the right place to build pagodas, but you must not ignore to have your guardians around to protect them in Tibetana.
And today we'll be teaching you how to play Tibetana, game designed by Borja Barinaga, Jose Cespedes and Daniel Pons, and published by Gen X Games.
And hello everyone, it's Stella.
And Tarrant here from Maple University.
Alright, let's get to the classroom.
In Tibetana, players are competing tribes in Buddhist Tibet, competing against each other to control the landscape and to build pagodas. It is a tactical battle for control, as players will place and move guardians for protection and priestesses for worship, ultimately using those priestesses to draw energy from the board to build up their pagodas. All the while, players will try to harness to their best abilities the sometimes volatile powers of the demons from the Tibetan culture. It's a race to build pagodas, and the first player to build 3 5-story pagodas, or whoever has the most points in pagodas when the game reaches its end, will be the winner. With 19 separate board tiles, the game has variable setup, but for your first few games, lay the board out exactly as shown in the rulebook. Your 3 tile types, the deserts, forests and mountains, will be laid out like so. On each player's designated starting hex, place 1 priestess, 1 guardian, and 3 pagoda pieces in a stack. Your remaining pieces, 4 priestesses, 4 guardians, and 15 pagoda pieces, form your personal supply. And be aware, what we're showing you here is a resin prototype. The final game pieces will be plastic and much more flexible and durable. Place the 2 portal pieces in their indicated locations. Each of the portals will adjoin a single hex, and the 2 hexes thus adjoined are considered adjacent for all purposes. Next, seed the board with energy. Player starting hexes get no energy. All hexes which are adjacent to one of the player's starting locations are seeded with a single energy. Place 2 energy in all hexes adjacent to one of those, and remaining hexes get 3 energy. Finally, set up the summoning board between the 2 players. On this circular track of the board, you'll place the die in the top space, doesn't matter what number you place it on, and above the board place the 5 demon cards. The order doesn't matter, but it tells you what numbers those demons will correspond to. Numbers 1, 2, 3, and so on. Place each demon's mini and pedestal into its space on the summoning altar ready for use. Finally, these 2 boxes represent where the players will store their energy. Each player takes 2 starting energy from the supply, and you're now ready to play. Tibetana is played in turns, starting from the black player and going back and forward until the end of the game is reached. A turn consists of taking actions. On the very first turn, black may take up to 2 main actions. On all subsequent turns, players may take 3 actions. There are 6 different actions available. These 3 are called basic actions and may be taken any number of times on your turn. These are move, train, and build. These 3 actions are called special actions. You may take each of them at most once per turn, and taking one of them requires you to spend 2 energy from your pool. These actions are summon, expel, and portal. Also once per turn, you're allowed to take an exert action, in which case you spend 2 energy in order to take a 4th action. The exert action could be basic or special. Just remember that if it's special, the total energy cost of doing this is 4. The first action is train, and this is how you bring new guardians or priestesses onto the board. To do this, take 1 guardian or priestess from your supply and add it to an empty space in a territory where you have a pagoda of any height. If you have no priestesses or guardians in your supply, you can't take the action. Each territory type has a different maximum capacity for priestesses and guardians. The deserts have a maximum capacity of 2, the forests have a maximum capacity of 3, and the mountains a maximum capacity of 4. You cannot train in a territory if it is full. The second basic action is move. To do this, take a priestess or guardian and move it to an open slot in an adjacent territory. As was the case for training, if a territory is full, you can't move into it. You may always freely move into a territory which does not contain any of the opponent's pieces, whether that be empty or whether it has only your own or neutral pieces. You may also freely move into a territory if the only opposing pieces there are pagodas. If you do this, immediately clear the pagodas, returning those pieces to your opponent's supply. However, to move into a territory which contains any opposing guardians or priestesses, you must first clear that territory. If that opposing priestess or guardian is the only enemy piece in that territory, including pagodas, then in order to clear it, you must have 3 or more of your own guardians in territories adjacent to that destination territory. So here I have these 3 guardians, so they can clear this white guardian, which is returned to the player's supply, as one of them moves in. If the territory contains 2 opposing pieces, again, for these purposes, a pagoda of any height counts as a piece, then you must have 5 of your guardians in adjacent territories. For example, if black wanted to clear this territory, then it would need another guardian here and perhaps this one moving into here to have the total requirement of 5 to clear this territory and move in. A territory with 3 opposing pieces requires 7 guardians surrounding it to clear. And this is actually not possible to achieve unless you add some expansion modules for the game. Although adjacent guardians is what you need to clear enemy pieces, it can still be a priestess which does the final move. The third basic action is build, and this is how you'll use your priestesses to draw energy from the board and build your pagoda stories. Follow these steps. Firstly, choose a territory of origin. This must be a territory containing at least one of your priestesses and at least 1 energy. Then choose a destination territory. This must also contain at least one of your priestesses and must either already have one of your pagodas, which is shorter than 5 stories, or an empty pagoda space. That means the space is not filled by a demon. The origin and destination can be the same territory. They could be adjacent territories, or if they're non-adjacent territories, then check that there is a chain of territories in between, also containing at least one of your priestesses. Finally, make sure the origin and destination priestesses are not pressured. To do that, count up how many guardians each player has in the priestess's territory and all adjacent territories. If the opponent has more, the priestess is pressured. If the opponent has fewer or equal, then the priestess is not pressured. A pressured priestess cannot be the origin or destination, but can be one of the links in a chain. So looking at white's layout here, this territory is a valid origin and a valid destination. This priestess is pressured by 2 opposing guardians to 1, and so this could not be an origin or destination, but could be part of a chain. This territory is not pressured, 2 guardians apiece, but it has no energy, so this is a valid chain or destination, but not origin. This territory has energy and is not pressured, but has a demon in the pagoda slot, so this could be a valid origin, chain, but not destination. As such, in this layout, there are 4 possible legal build actions which the white player could take. Once you've chosen one, place one of your pagoda pieces into the destination and draw an energy from the origin and add it to your pool. As it's a basic action, you can build more than once per turn. However, the same priestess cannot serve as destination for multiple build actions within a turn. As such, if you were building twice on this turn, you could build either option 1 or 4 but not both, and either option 2 or 3 but not both. Finally, advance the summon die one step around the summon track. This die completing a full lap is one of the ways to trigger the summon demon action, and that's what we'll talk about next. The first special action is to summon a demon. You may do this with any action on your turn by spending 2 energy from your pool. Or if the summon die has just completed a lap, then the next action any player takes must be to summon a demon, but there will be no energy cost for doing so. To be clear, this means that if you finish the lap on your first or second main action of a turn, then your second or third action will be to summon. If you complete the lap on the third action of your turn, then your opponent's first main action will be summon. Regardless of how it's triggered, the first step of summoning is to roll the die, and this determines which of the 5 demons will be summoned. Each of the demons has 3 states of summoning. The first is natural. Its miniature will be placed on the board, and there'll be a natural effect applied to that territory. The second is agitated. You'll place the demon's mini on top of its pedestal, and you'll now apply the stronger agitated passive effect to that territory. The third state is exploding, and when this is triggered, you'll apply a single once-off strong effect in or around that territory, and then return it to its place on the summoning altar. Demons will go through this in a cycle, so you'll summon it to natural, then to agitated, and then you'll explode it back, cycling like so. So, as the player taking the summoning action, if you summon a demon from its resting state to its natural state, you get to choose where the demon is placed. It may be placed into any empty pagoda space on the board. That is, having a demon present will block up the pagoda space and mean that no player can build pagodas there. If you summon a demon from its natural state to its agitated state, you may reposition that demon again into any empty pagoda space on the board, adding its agitated pedestal when you do. When you summon a demon to its exploding state, you do not get to reposition that demon. It will explode in that location with the effects applied there before you return the minis to the supply. If you roll a 6 when summoning, this is a powered summoning and you will summon one of the demons 2 steps at once. Re-roll and keep re-rolling until you don't roll a 6, and then either summon that demon from off the board straight into its agitated state in the territory of your choice, or advance it directly from natural to exploding in its current location. If it was already agitated when the powered summoning occurs, then you just explode it, you don't re-summon it in its natural state. To complete the action, always return the die to the top of the summoning track, even if it started partway through a lap. I'll cover exactly what these demons' effects are at the end of the video, but for now I'll keep taking you through the different actions. The second available special action is Expel. Pay the 2 energy, and move any one demon of your choice to an adjacent territory which has an empty pagoda space. The Expel action is what gives you the most control over using the demon's abilities to your benefit. The third special action is Regenerate Portals. Remember, during setup we placed 2 portals adjacent to a single hex each, and for all purposes in the game, those hexes are considered adjacent to each other. The Regenerate Portals action allows you to reposition both of those portals to wherever you want around the edge of the board. Again, each portal will link to a single hex only, and those will now be considered adjacent. The final action is Exert, which lets you spend 2 energy to take a 4th action on your turn. The game can end in the following ways. If one player completes 3 pagodas of 5 stories each, the game ends immediately and that player wins. If a player is ever reduced to having no pagodas on the board, then the game ends immediately and that player loses. If the final energy has been drawn from the board, or the players have collectively gone 10 turns without drawing any energy from the board, then the game ends and you'll resolve based on points for your pagodas. Each of your level 1 pagodas is worth 1 point, level 2 pagodas are worth 3, level 3 is worth 6, level 4 is worth 10, and level 5 is worth 15. The player with the most points wins. Finally, at any point, the players may choose to draw the game by agreement, or one player may concede. Now we'll take you through what the 5 demons do. And do note, you can start playing now and learn about the demons as you go if you want. But if you want to learn ahead of time, this section is for you. The Death Dancer is used to clear out figures from a space. At the end of every turn while Death Dancer is on the board, the active player chooses one priestess or guardian in Death Dancer's territory and returns it to its owner's supply. When in its agitated state, this increases to removing 2 figures. When the Death Dancer explodes, both players get the chance to remove figures from either the Death Dancer's territory or any adjacent territory not containing a pagoda. The active player gets to do this first, followed by the inactive player, and then the active player again before the demon is returned. And you're going to see this sort of behaviour from all of the demon's exploding powers. Both players will get to do something, but the active player will have a stronger version. The shapeshifter in an otherwise empty territory has no effect. But if you have any pieces in the shapeshifter's territory, then a natural shapeshifter counts as a guardian for you. If the shapeshifter is agitated, then it counts as both a guardian and a priestess for you. Here, white is considered to have 2 priestesses and 1 guardian in this territory. It won't count towards the territory's capacity, but you can't move it and still can't build a pagoda there. When the shapeshifter explodes, the active player trains a priestess or guardian either in its territory or an adjacent one, excluding one controlled by the other player. Then the inactive player trains, then the active player again. The Wind Traveller speeds up movement. For a natural Wind Traveller, if the figure begins or moves into the Wind Traveller's space, then it has 2 movement range for that action. If the Wind Traveller is agitated, then that movement range increases again to 3. Just note that each individual step of a long-range movement must itself be legal. When the Wind Traveller explodes, there are 2 possible effects. The player can either build a pagoda level following all of the normal rules except that energy is not required in the origin and is not drawn from the board, or the player can gain 3 energy from the general supply. When this demon explodes, the active player chooses one of those options and the inactive player must take the other. The Mind Ruler nullifies priestesses for the purposes of the build action only. In its natural state, priestesses in the Mind Ruler's territory are stunned. They cannot take part in a build action, origin, destination, or chain. In the agitated state, priestesses in that territory act as if they are the other colour during build actions. So here, black could draw energy from here across the Mind Ruler's territory to build a pagoda here. Finally, when the Mind Ruler explodes, the active player may first remove 1 priestess from the Mind Ruler's territory or an adjacent one, again excluding any territories with pagodas. Then the inactive player may take this effect, then the active player. Each player gains 1 energy from the general supply for each of their priestesses removed in this step. And remember, through all of these, you can target your own pieces. This could be a way to take priestesses away from where you don't want them, or a way to generate energy for yourself. Finally, the multiple blocks out a territory. While it's in its natural state, all of the priestess and guardian spaces in that territory are considered filled. No player may move into or through it. In its agitated state, this is still true. plus all of the adjacent territories are reduced in capacity by 1. Here, this forest territory is now full, no other black piece may move into there. If a territory becomes overcapacity when the multiple is summoned, then the player who controls those figures does have the option to move out of there using their next actions, either on the current turn, or if that player is the inactive player, then with the first actions of their next turn. However, as soon as that player's turn ends, or that player chooses to take any action other than moving a figure out of that territory, then remaining figures are crushed, returned to the player's supply. When the multiple explodes, the entire territory it was on, including any energy present, is removed from the game. If there was a portal on that territory, then it remains inactive until somebody takes the Move Portal special action. And that's how to play Tivitana. We are using a prototype copy of the game, so the rules and components may not be final, and do check out the project page for the game. We'll put a link to that in the description below.
And thanks so much for watching. Your like and comments are much appreciated. Subscribe to see what's coming and let us know what games you've been playing. See you next time.